Today we're going to solve quadratics by factoring. When they tell you to solve just means to find the x-intercepts. So if they tell you solve this quadratic, or you see the quadratic is equal to something, it just means find the x-intercepts. So you can easily cheat throughout the quiz and then graph everything on Desmos. But a quadratic, it looks something like this. It either looks like a U or it looks like an N. And sometimes it has two x-intercepts, like this one has two x-intercepts. And you just state what the x-intercepts are. You'd be like, oh, okay, this x-intercept's at 3, and the other x-intercept is at 6. So my answers are x equals 3 and x equals 6. So, but we're not always going to go to the graph. We kind of have to know how to do it through algebra, so doing it by hand. And it's not like I'm going to see what kind of work you have, whether you did it by hand or not. But you need to know this for your future math courses. So please try all these problems by factoring and doing it by hand. And if you do that, if you can at least get it down, that way next year and the years to follow, you won't be struggling through this topic because you'll be seeing this over and over again every year. So there are 3 steps. First, if needed, use inverse. Use inverse operations to set the equation equal to 0. So sometimes your equation is not equal to 0. That's your first step. Make it equal to 0. Second step is we need a factor. And we factor using the snowflake method. So if you remember this from 2 weeks ago, we were factoring out trinomials. That's all we're doing. So pretty much you've already learned how to do this. We're just taking it one more step further. The third step is to solve by setting the factors equal to 0. So I'll show you that in a second, but it's just 3 steps. Sometimes you can skip the first step, like let's look at this first equation. But before we do, remember the snowflake method. You have snowflake that you're going to draw out. And then on the sides we put A, on the top we put B, and on the bottom we put A times C. And then you're thinking of the numbers. Here are the 2 numbers, root 1 and root 2. You're thinking of the numbers that multiply to that bottom slice and add up to B. Okay, so if you need that beside you as you're doing your quiz, keep that beside you. So first step is to make sure it's equal to 0. In this case, it is equal to 0. So that's my first step. So I don't need to do inverse operations. I'm good. Second step is snowflake method. So let's talk about what our A and our B and our C are. So my A in this case is 1, my B is 6, and my C is 8. I fill in the snowflake. A times C, 1 times 8 is just 8. So remember, I always start off with this bottom one first. Think of all the numbers that multiply to 8. 1 times 8, and 2 times 4. Think of other numbers too. Think of the negatives. Negative times negative is positive, so negative 1 times negative 8 works. And negative 2 times negative 4 works. Okay, now go through all of these and see which one is going to add up to 6. So 1 plus 8, nope, that's 9. 2 plus 4, that's 6. I think that could be the answer. Let's try it out. Positive 2 and positive 4. And remember, double check. 2 times 4. Okay, that equals 8, so I'm good here. 2 plus 4. That equals 6, so I'm good there. Alright, so my 2 factors. 1x plus 2. Another factor is 1x plus 4. Okay, so here's the next step. Alright, so we've already learned how to do this, snowflake. Okay, so step 3 is we're going to set each factor equal to 0, okay? And here's why. anytime you're looking for x-intercepts, remember every x-intercept, the y value is always 0. So that's how we're trying to figure out what x can I put in here to make it 0, okay? You can probably already guess what x values work. But that's why we're equaling to 0, because our y needs to be equal to 0. That's the only way you can find the x-intercept. So what I do is I like to split it up. X plus 2 equals 0, and x plus 4 equals 0. So what's in the way of x? Plus 2 is in the way of x, so the inverse is minus 2. So x equals negative 2. And what's in the way of x? Then plus 4 is in the way of x, so inverse operation is minus 4. So x equals negative 4. So these are my two answers, and this is what I would answer on the quiz if they're asking me which are the solutions, okay? Now, here's how you can check on Desmos if you are correct. So open up Desmos and type in the equation. So we had x squared plus 6x plus 8, okay? All right, zoom in to the x-axis, touch one of the x-intercepts. That x-intercept's negative 4, and that x-intercept's negative 2. So let's see. Negative 4 and negative 2. So I am good. Those are my two answers. That is it. Also ask yourself this question, because this may be a quiz question too. Maybe the quiz is not asking what are the x-intercepts. Maybe the quiz are asking how many answers you have, how many x-intercepts you have. So we can graph it and we see, oh, there's obviously two x-intercepts. Or like what we just did, we solved it. There's two answers, so we're going to say there's two solutions. All right, let's look at the next one. Same 3 steps. So first step, let me keep it consistent. First step is to set it equal to 0. In this case, it does equal to 0, so I am good to go. I'm moving on to step 2. Step 2 is snowflake method. So my A is 1, B is negative 4, and C is negative 5. Fill in the snowflake. 1 times negative 5, that's negative 5. Alright, so we're thinking of all the numbers that multiply to negative 5. 1 times negative 5 works. What's the only other way to equal negative 5? Negative 1 times positive 5 also equals to negative 5, right? Because the only way you can multiply and get a negative is if you multiply by opposite signs. Alright, so which one of these is going to equal negative 4? 1 plus negative 5, does that equal negative 4? And I think it does, but we'll check in a second. 1 times negative 5, that equals negative 5, so I'm good here. Alright, now check in your calculator. 1 plus negative 5. Remember, if they're different signs, subtract and keep the sign of the bigger digit. And that equals negative 4, so I am good. So my two factors is 1x plus 1 and 1x minus 5. Alright, so that was step 2. Step 3, equal each factor to 0. Okay, so I'm going to equal each factor to 0. I like to divide it out. X plus 1 equals 0. X minus 5 equals 0. And solve. Minus 1, minus 1. X equals negative 1. Plus 5. Plus 5. X equals 5. So if I were to graph this on Desmos, my two x-intercepts should be at x equals negative 1 and x equals 5. So let me double check. X squared minus 4x minus 5. And let's see. Yep, I have one at negative 1 and one at positive 5. And those are the answers I got, so I am good. That's what I'll answer on my quiz if this was a quiz question. So how many x-intercepts do we have? Well, we have two answers, so two solutions. is one thing that I need to mention that's super important. You can write this anywhere on your notes. Another word for solutions are x-intercepts, roots, or zeros. Please remember that, because on your quiz, I may not say find the x-intercepts. I may just say find the roots, okay? So keep that in mind. They mean the same thing. And that's from our vocab from 2 weeks ago. Alright, let's look at this next one. Okay. If you feel like you can do this on your own, I would pause it, try it out. Step 1 is set it equal to 0. In this case, it's not equal to 0, so we're going to do inverse operations. I need to move that 2 over to this side, okay? Alright, so inverse of that positive 2 is minus 2. So my new equation is t squared plus 8t plus 16 equals 2 minus 2 is 0. Alright, now I am good. I can move on. Okay, so here's an example of where it doesn't start out with 0. And just make sure you don't get tricked with that on the quiz. Alright, so my A is 1, my B is 8, and my C is 16. Alright, let's write down all the numbers that equal to 16. 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 4. Also, negative times negative is positive, so negative 1 times negative 16, negative 2 times negative 8, and negative 4 times negative 4. And those are all the possibilities. Alright, so we're going to go through each one of these, and they have to add up to 8. 1 plus 16, that's 17. Nope. 2 plus 8, that's 10. Nope. 4 plus 4, that's 8. Those should be my answers. I'm going to double check. 4 times 4 equals 16. Yep. 4 plus 4, does that equal 8? And it does. So my two factors are x plus 4 and x plus 4. Alright, remember step 3, so that was step 2. Step 3, and here's the super important step that a lot of you keep forgetting, and that's what's going to mess you up on the quiz. Do not forget step 3. Because a lot of you are going to say, oh, my answer is positive 4, and no, we don't know that yet. We got to equal it to 0 and solve. So x plus 4 equals to 0, x plus 4 equals to 0. We're solving by inverse operations, and we get x equals negative 4. And on this side, we get x equals negative 4. Okay. Alright, so those are my two answers, but notice they're the same number. So if you just want to say x equals negative 4 just once, you can. Okay, so if it's the same answer, you only have one answer. Okay, and here's why. Let's graph this, and so that way you can see how it looks like. So x squared plus 8x plus 16. Okay, you see it touches the x-axis only one time, and it's at negative 4. Okay, so you only have one root, 1 0. And notice that your x-intercept and the vertex are the same. So if your vertex happens to be your x-intercept, you only have one solution. So here's my answer. I have an x-intercept at negative 4. So here's a case where you only have one solution. And that happens sometimes. Alright, try the next one on your own if you can. Step 1, make it equal to 0. So in this case, it equals to negative 5, so I have to do inverse operations. The opposite of minus 5 is plus 5 on both sides. Notice I added the 5 to the 19 because those are like terms. Step 2 is the snowflake. C is 24. All the numbers that multiply to 24 are 1 times 24, 2 times 12, 3 times 8, and 4 times 6. And think of the opposite, so two negatives can also multiply to positive, so also negative 1 times negative 24, negative 2 times negative 12, negative 3 times negative 8, and negative 4 times negative 6. Some of you are really good at this and don't even need to write them down. You automatically know the answers. Sometimes I get lucky with that, but sometimes I have to write them out. Alright, so we have to pick a pair that equals to negative 11. So 1 plus 24, that's 25. 2 plus 12, that's 14. 3 plus 8, that's positive 11, but I want negative 11. 4 plus 6, nope, that's 10. Negative 1 and negative 24, that's negative 25. Negative 2 and negative 12, that's negative 14. Negative 3 plus negative 8, I think that's negative 11. Let's try it out. Negative 3 and negative 8. Let's multiply. Negative 3 times negative 8, and my calculator tells me that's 24. So what about negative 3 plus negative 8? Remember, if they're the same signs, add and keep the sign, so it equals negative 11. So those are my two choices. So my roots are x minus 3 and x minus 8. Remember, this is the final step. You keep going, okay? Equal them 0 and solve. Notice how when you solve, your answer is the opposite of those two numbers that you picked. Here's what I mean. I know my two choices had to be negative 3 and negative 8, but my final answer is a positive 3 and positive 8, okay? That's why step 3 is super important, because those signs can really mess you up if you don't do step 3. Alright, I'm going to check on Desmos. X squared minus 11x plus 24. X-intercept at 3 and x-intercept at 8, and they're both positive. And those are my two answers. And notice I have two different x-intercepts, so there are two solutions. Alright, last one, and then we'll do a word problem. Okay, first, check if it equals to 0, and yes it does, so I'm good to go. Second step is snowflake. My A is 1, my B is negative 3, and my C is 9. Alright, two numbers that multiply to 9. 1 times 9, 3 times 3, also negative 1 times negative 9, and negative 3 times negative 3. Okay, but I have to pick answers that add up to negative 3. 1 plus 9, nope, that's 10. 3 plus 3, nope, that's 6. Negative 1 plus negative 9, that's negative 10. And negative 3 plus negative 3, that's negative 6. Okay, so all of the choices I had, they didn't work. And if that happens, where you figured out every possible answer choice it could be, and none of them work, then that means this is prime. And if it's prime, 99% of the time, your answer is no solution. So I'm going to graph it really quickly just to make sure I didn't make a mistake. So x squared minus 3x plus 9. Okay, look at this quadratic. Does it touch the x-axis? And will it ever touch the x-axis? And I don't think it'll ever touch it because it's going up forever and ever. but it started off here, way above the x-axis. Okay, so if it never touches the x-axis, will it ever have x-intercepts? It won't. So my final answer is no solution, and that can happen. Okay, so if you're going through the snowflake method and you know you've done it correctly and there's no possible answer choice that could work, your answer is no solution. Just graph it on Desmos real quickly, just double check. But that's it, that could happen. And I like when it happens because I don't have to keep solving. That's it. Alright, so we've gone through a few examples where we had two solutions. So our answers were x equals two different numbers. Another two solutions. We went through an example where it's just one solution because our final answer ended up being the same number. And we went through an example where it's prime, so our final answer is no solution, okay? We can't say x equals anything. We just say no solution. All right. Let's go through this word problem. So the area of a rectangle garden is 96 feet squared. Sorry, that's weird. And the length of a garden is 4 feet more than the width. This situation can be represented in this equation. Okay, luckily they already give us the equation. What is the width of the garden? So my equation is a equals w squared plus 4w. All right, but they already gave me the area, the a, so I'm going to replace that. 96 equals w squared plus 4w. All right, so if you get a quiz question where they give you a word problem and it's quadratic, all we're doing is just the same thing. Go through the same 3 steps. First step, make it equal to 0. Okay, it doesn't equal to 0, so inverse operations. So minus 96 on both sides, so that's 0 equals w squared plus 4w minus 96. So notice this 96 is not like terms with the w squared or 4w, right? Because the 96 doesn't even have a w, you can't subtract it. Alright, so my a is 1, my b is 4, and my c is 96, negative 96. So here is step 2. So same 3 steps. First step, equal to 0. Second step, snowflake. Alright, now all the numbers that multiply to negative 96, and let me show you a really quick trick. If you want all the factors of a number and you can't think of all of them, go to Desmos, type in the number you have, so 96, divided by x, okay? And then hit the gear function and go to table, and there are all your factors. 1 times 96, 2 times 48, and then keep hitting enter. 3 times 32, 4 times 24. Nope, I don't want the 5. Don't pick any decimals. 6 and 16, 8 and 12, and that's it, okay? So I'm going to write all of those down. 196, 248, 332, 424. But I want negative 96, so 1 times negative 96. 2 times negative 48. What's the next one? 3 times 32. 4 times negative 24. 6, 16, and 8 and 12. Okay, also the opposites work. Remember, if you're multiplying different signs, you get a negative. So also negative 1 times positive 96. Negative 2 times positive 48. Okay. Alright, so go through all of them, and maybe you already found your 2 answers that would work a long time ago. Alright, add them. Nope, that's negative 95. Nope, that's negative 46. Nope, that's negative 19. negative 29. Nope, that's negative 20. Nope, that's negative 10. This is negative 4, but I want a positive 4, so nope. So let me check out the opposite. Negative 8 plus 12. That, I think, equals to 4, so I think that's my answer choice. So always check, just in case. Negative 8 times positive 12, that equals negative 96. Negative 8 plus 12. Remember, if they're different signs, subtract, so you get 4. And keep the sign of the bigger digit. The bigger digit is 12, and it's positive, so it's a positive 4. Okay, so we're going to write out our factors. X minus 8 and x plus 12. In this case, it's w. I'm going to change it back to w because I don't want us getting confused. But if you want to keep x, you can keep x. It's really no biggie. Just know your x is your width. Alright, the final step. Equal to 0. And remember, when you're solving, it's inverse operations, so our final answer is always the opposite of what we got. Okay. Alright, we're not done here. They want to know the width of the garden, right? So yeah, you're going to say, oh yeah, my width is 8 and my width is negative 12. But when we're talking about real world, just kind of pause and check. If you're talking about the width of something, can a width ever be negative? Widths can never be negative, so I will not say my width is a negative 12 feet. But I can say my width is a positive 8 feet, and that's all I'm going to say. That's my answer, okay? So with word problems, really it's simple. It's the same exact 3 steps. It's just that when it comes to your final answer, double check what they're asking, okay? And double check which answer would make sense. If both of them make sense, then that's both of your answers. If only one makes sense, you only have one answer, okay? So that's it for the notes. So again, all of this is just snowflake method. The only extra thing is the step 3 where you have to solve, okay? If y'all have any questions, or if you have any quiz questions and it's like your second time attempting your quiz, because remember, you have 3 attempts and I'll take the highest grade. Always screenshot it to me and I can help you out, all right? And you can also take a quiz with a friend. So if you know someone from a different class and you decide to call them up and say, hey, let's take the quiz together, you can definitely do that, and then y'all can do it online together. Obviously, you're going to have different submissions.